He called me a gold digger, then lost everything and started stalking me across countries. I never thought the man I loved for 2 years would turn into someone I'd be genuinely afraid of. If you asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you I was in a stable, mature relationship. We had plans, we had structure, we had what I thought was mutual respect. I was wrong. It didn't happen overnight. That's the scariest part. It started small, almost invisible. When we first moved in together, everything felt fair. We split bills based on income, we shared chores, and we actually communicated. If one of us had a rough day, the other would pick up the slack. It felt like a partnership. Then he got promoted. At first, I was proud of him. I celebrated him. I even helped him prepare for that interview. But after the promotion, something shifted. Not immediately, not in a way you could point at and say, that's the moment. It was subtle. He stopped doing the dishes, once or twice. Then laundry, then groceries. At first, I thought he was just tired. He said work was stressful, and I believed him. I picked up the slack because that's what partners do, right? But weeks passed, and nothing changed. Actually, it got worse. One morning, I opened a pot he was supposed to clean. There was mold inside, not just a little, I mean thick, disgusting, days-old mold. And when I asked him about it, he didn't even look embarrassed. He just said, I forgot. That was the moment something clicked in my head. Because you don't forget mold. You ignore it, and worse, he had put the lid on it. So I wouldn't see. That's when I realized, this wasn't stress. This was intentional. Still, I didn't explode. I tried to fix it like an adult. I suggested we hire a cleaner. He refused, said he didn't want strangers in the house. So I suggested grocery delivery. He called me frivolous. That's when I made a different kind of suggestion. I told him, calmly, if you don't want to do chores anymore, I'll take over. But I'll need to reduce my work hours, and I expect to be compensated for that. He stared at me like I had just insulted him, like I had crossed some invisible line. And then he said it. You sound like a gold digger. I swear, everything went silent in that moment. Because I wasn't asking for luxury. I was asking not to be exploited. And suddenly, I saw him clearly. So I said, no. You're the gold digger. You want a housekeeper and a chef, for free. That fight ended everything. I packed my bags that same night. He told me I'd come to my senses. I didn't. I blocked him everywhere. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't even the beginning. At first, he tried to apologize. Through friends, long messages, voice notes, excuses. Then came the guilt. Then the manipulation. And then, the audacity. He asked me to help pay his rent. After I had already left. After calling me a gold digger. I actually laughed when I heard that. But deep down, it wasn't funny. Because it showed me something dangerous. He didn't think he was wrong. He just thought I'd come back. Months passed. I rebuilt my life. New routine, new friends. And eventually, I met someone. He was calm, respectful, nothing like my ex. For the first time in months, I felt safe. Then one day, my phone rang. It was a mutual friend. And the moment I picked up, I knew something was wrong. She told me my ex had shown up at my father's house. Unannounced, asking for me. My stomach dropped, because he didn't even know where I lived anymore. Which meant, he was searching. I brushed it off at first. Told myself it was just desperation. But then it got worse. A lot worse. Another friend called me a week later. And what she said, genuinely scared me. He had lost his job. Not because of layoffs, not because of performance, but because he had been driving around my town all day. Every day, looking for me. Let that sink in. A grown man, spending his days hunting for his ex-girlfriend. That's when it stopped being sad, and started being terrifying. I started noticing things. Cars slowing down near me. Familiar routes feeling unsafe. Even though I never actually saw him, I felt watched. And the worst part, the police couldn't do anything. Because technically, he hadn't done anything yet. No threats, no direct contact, just obsession. The man who once told me I was replaceable was now destroying his own life trying to find me. He lost his apartment, his job, his reputation. Even his own sister got tired of taking care of him. And still, he blamed me. At that point, I had two choices. Stay, and hope he eventually lets go. Or leave, completely. Start over somewhere he could never find me. And for the first time, that idea didn't feel extreme. It felt necessary. Because here's the truth no one talks about. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who hates you. It's the one who thinks they own you. I haven't decided yet if I'll leave the country. But I've already made one decision. I will never ignore red flags again. Not the small ones. Not the subtle ones. Not the ones that slowly turn love into control. Because by the time you realize what's happening, it might already be too late. And if you're listening to this right now, and something feels off in your relationship, trust that feeling, because I ignored mine for 2 months. And it almost cost me a lot more than just a breakup. I thought distance would fix everything. I was wrong. Because distance doesn't stop obsession. It feeds it. After I found out he lost his job searching for me, I started changing everything. My routine, my routes, even the time I left the house. I stopped posting anything online. No stories, no check-ins, nothing that could give away where I was. And still, I felt like he was getting closer. Not physically, but mentally, like he hadn't moved on at all, while I was trying to rebuild my entire life. Martin noticed it before I even said anything. One evening, we were walking back after dinner, and he suddenly stopped. He looked behind us, then at me, and said quietly, "Has that car been following us?" My heart dropped instantly. I didn't even want to turn around, because part of me already knew. But when I did, the car sped off, too fast, too sudden, like someone didn't want to be seen. I told myself it was a coincidence. It had to be, but that night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I got a message. Not from him, from a number I didn't recognize. It just said, "I saw you." That's it. No name, no explanation, but I knew. I didn't need proof. I felt it in my chest. That was the moment everything changed. Because now, it wasn't just in my head anymore. I finally went to the police. Again, this time, I showed them the message. Told them everything. The breakup, the stalking, the job loss, the car, but they still said the same thing. There's not enough evidence. I remember sitting there thinking. So I have to wait until something worse happens. They didn't answer that. Martin didn't hesitate. He stepped in immediately, started staying over more often, walking me everywhere, even talking about installing cameras. At first, I felt guilty, like I was dragging him into something messy. But he just said, "You're not the problem, he is." And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't crazy. But my ex, he was spiraling, fast. One of our old mutual friends finally told me the truth. Apparently, he had become obsessed with the idea that I owed him. Not just emotionally, but financially. He told people I used him, and then ran away. That I left him to struggle, even though it was his apartment, his choices, his behavior, but in his mind, I was the villain, and that's what made it dangerous. Because when someone believes you wrong them, they stop seeing you as a person. A week later, things escalated again. My father called me, and I will never forget the tone in his voice. Tight, controlled, angry. He said, he came here again. This time, he wasn't asking. He was demanding to know where I was, demanding to fix things, demanding I stop ruining his life. My father told him to leave, but before he did, he said something that made my blood run cold. "She'll come back. She has no choice. No choice." That night, I made my decision. I wasn't staying. Portugal stopped being an idea. It became a plan. I didn't tell anyone except my closest friend, and Martin. We started preparing quietly. Documents, savings, a place to stay, everything. Because the scariest part about obsession is this. You don't know how far it will go, until it goes too far. A few days before I was supposed to leave, I got one last message. From that same unknown number. "You can run, but you'll regret it." I stared at the screen for a long time. And instead of fear, I felt something else. Clarity. Because that message told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about fixing things. It wasn't even about me anymore. It was about control, and he had lost it. The day I left, I didn't look back, not at my old city, not at my old life, and definitely not at him. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is disappear from someone who thinks you belong to them. And as the plane took off, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. But deep down, I knew one thing. This story wasn't over yet. I thought getting on that plane would end everything. New country, new life, new beginning, no past, no him. For the first few weeks in Portugal, it actually felt real, peaceful, safe. I started building a routine again. Morning walks, small cafes, quiet streets where nobody knew my name or my past. Martin stayed with me for the first 2 weeks. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. No looking over my shoulder. No fear of a random car slowing down. No unknown messages. Nothing. Just silence. But silence doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes, it just means something is waiting. It started with something small. Too small, honestly. A coincidence. At least, that's what I told myself. I was at a local cafe I had just discovered. A place I had never posted about. Never mentioned. Never shared with anyone except Martin. I ordered my coffee, sat down, opened my phone. And then I froze. Because on the table next to me was a phone, and on the screen was a photo of me. Not an old photo, not from social media, a recent one. In Portugal, my heart started pounding so hard I could barely think. I looked around instantly, but no one seemed out of place. No one watching me, no one reacting, just normal people, living normal lives. I left immediately, didn't even finish my coffee. I told myself there had to be another explanation. There had to be, but deep down, I already knew. That night, I called Martin. I told him everything, every detail, and there was a long silence on the phone. Before he said something that made my stomach drop. Are you sure no one else knew where you were going? I didn't answer, because suddenly, a thought hit me. The mutual friends. I hadn't cut everyone off completely. There were still a few people who knew I was thinking about moving. Who knew I liked Portugal. Who knew enough. And all it takes is one person talking. The next day, I tested something. I messaged 2 different people. Told each of them a different location I might visit. Completely fake. Just to see. And 3 days later, I got another message. I didn't know you liked that beach. It wasn't even the beach I had gone to. It was the fake one. That's when it hit me hard. Someone was feeding him information. And suddenly, it wasn't just about him anymore. It was bigger, messier, more dangerous, because obsession alone is terrifying. But obsession with help, that's something else entirely. I cut contact with everyone. Immediately, no explanations, no warnings, just silence. Martin flew back within 24 hours. No hesitation, no questions. And this time, we didn't just feel uncomfortable. We felt hunted. We went to the police again. This time in Portugal, and unlike before, they listened, really listened, because now, it wasn't just a breakup story. It was international stalking, harassment, possible tracking, and someone leaking my location. They advised me to stay somewhere secure, change numbers, avoid patterns, everything. And then, the final piece happened, the one thing that confirmed everything. I got a message, not from an unknown number this time. From him, a new account, new name, but it was him. I knew instantly, and the message said, "You really thought you could disappear from me?" I felt cold, completely numb, because in that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't about closure. This wasn't about getting back together. This was control, obsession, and ego. He didn't want me back. He just didn't want to lose. And I was the thing he couldn't control anymore. But here's the twist he didn't expect. I wasn't running anymore, because this time, I wasn't alone, and this time, the law was finally on my side. The investigation started shortly after. Digital tracking, IP tracing, contact mapping, everything, and what they found shocked even me. It wasn't just one person helping him. It was two people I trusted, 2 people who smiled to my face, and sent my life updates behind my back. And him, he had been planning this for months. Saving money, tracking patterns, waiting, not to fix things, but to find me. And now, he had crossed a line he couldn't come back from. Because obsession might feel powerful, but evidence, that's stronger. And for the first time since all of this began, I wasn't scared of him anymore. I was ready to end it. For good. I used to think the worst part of this story was leaving him. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing how far he was willing to go just to feel in control again. The investigation didn't take long once everything started connecting. Messages, IP addresses, locations, patterns, it all painted a very clear picture. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he wasn't the one watching me anymore. They were watching him. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. I was sitting in a quiet office, across from an officer, while they explained what they found. My hands were cold, but my mind, strangely calm. They told me he had been using multiple accounts, burner numbers, fake profiles, even tracking when I was online, when I was active, when I disappeared. But that wasn't the part that broke me. The part that hurt the most was the betrayal. 2 people I trusted. They had been feeding him information. Not constantly, not obviously, just small details, casual mentions. Yeah, she's doing okay. I think she's in Portugal now. I saw her post something earlier. They didn't think it was dangerous. They thought they were helping him get closure. But they weren't helping. They were guiding him straight to me. I didn't cry when I found out. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. Because sometimes, betrayal doesn't come with drama. It comes quietly, from the people you never thought you'd question. And him, he had crossed every line. The police moved quickly after that. There was enough evidence now. More than enough. I wasn't there when it happened. But I heard everything afterward. They found him at his apartment. Alone, surrounded by screens, notes, and timelines. My name everywhere, my routines, my movements, even guesses about where I might go next. It wasn't love. It wasn't heartbreak. It was obsession. And when they questioned him, do you know what he said? She's overreacting. Even then, he didn't think he was wrong. That's the scariest part. Not the stalking, not the messages, not even the fact that he followed me across countries. But the fact that in his mind, he was justified. The legal process took time. But for once, time was on my side. Restraining orders, charges, consequences, everything he thought he could avoid, finally caught up to him. And those 2 friends, they tried to apologize, said they didn't realize what they were doing, said they thought it was harmless. But I didn't respond, because some mistakes don't deserve explanations. They deserve distance, permanent distance. Months later, I was sitting by the ocean. Same country, Same city, but a completely different life. No fear, no checking over my shoulder. No unknown messages, just peace. Martin sat next to me, quietly. Not asking questions, not pushing me to move on. Just being there, and for the first time in a long time, I realized something. I didn't just escape him. I found myself again, stronger, sharper, unapologetic, because here's what no one tells you about situations like this. The biggest danger isn't the person who hurts you. It's the version of yourself that stays too long, trying to understand them, trying to fix them, trying to make it make sense. But some people don't want love, they want control, and the moment you take that away, they show you exactly who they are. So if you ever find yourself questioning your worth, your boundaries, your instincts, listen carefully, because that quiet voice in your head, the one that says, something isn't right, that voice might just save your life. And as for him, he lost everything, his job, his home, his reputation, his freedom, all because he couldn't accept one simple thing. I was never his to control.